One, two, three, four.
You are listening to Skylight, the Skylight Books podcast. Skylight Books is a general interest bookstore in the Los Feliz neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can shop with us from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. or visit us online 24/7 at skylightbooks.com. Follow along at Skylight Books Instagram and Twitter. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening, and now on to the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Skylight Books Crowdcast channel. My name is Natalie, and I am a bookseller and podcaster at Skylight Books. We are so happy that you could join us. Oh, I just saw that someone is tuning in from Brazil. Got distracted for a second. Thank you all so much for joining us from all over the place for this evening's event featuring Unimpressed by Miranda Tacchia in conversation with Aminder Dhaliwal. We are so excited that you have joined us today. And without further ado, Miranda Tacchia is a designer, illustrator, and cartoonist working in Los Angeles in the animation industry. She has worked as a character designer and layout artist for several animation studios, including Disney, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Warner Brothers. Her work has been featured in galleries in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and New York, as well as publications such as Juxtapose and Printed Pages. And Aminder Dhaliwal is a native of Brampton, Ontario, and received a bachelor's of animation from Sheridan College. She now lives in Los Angeles, where she has directed, storyboarded, and written for Disney TV Animation, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. She was named one of the top 10 animators to watch in 2020 by Variety. Her first graphic novel, Woman World, was nominated for an Ignatz Award for Outstanding Online Comic, and her second graphic novel, Cyclopedia Exotica, is in stores now. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. Those are some lovely introductions. I feel like I just learned so much about Miranda because I don't always know my friends to that resume level. Thank you so much for allowing me to host this, Miranda. I would have done it with you regardless of an audience because I want to know so much more about your process. I'm so happy you have a book and a collection of your work now. I did want to add that me and Miranda have known each other for quite a few years because of animation. We've worked on a couple of productions at the same time. And I've always known Miranda was a superstar. And I remember her at one point posting an amazing comic, and I rushed out of my office to hers and asked her if I could buy it on the spot. And I have it right here, framed, still to this day, because I knew that this day would come where I would get to interview you about your book. So I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here also. I've not done this with anyone else, to be honest.
Oh, good. I'm going to throw that in a lot of people's faces. So I did want to start by kind of reading the blurb I got to write for your book, because it really encapsulates how I feel about your work. So Miranda perfectly captures intimate moments of friendship, love, and being on your own. You can't open this book without finding a moment you recognize. And I truly feel like that. It is quite surprising to even me, since I got the book, the physical book, which is beautiful, of how true that is. It's just so wonderful. And I think there's one of my favorite comics that I think we can kind of start as an icebreaker for what your work is like. When he's smiling at your book collection, and that face is just perfect, and how you should feel about tonight, and as this book ends up on everyone's bookshelves. So let's dive in. So I want to start talking about the three relationships I kind of noticed in your book. You have friendship, you have sexual, both like romantic and casual sexual, and a person's relationship with themselves. And you start chapter 1 with friendship, and it's all of it is like incredibly relatable. So I wanted to talk about like how hard it was to capture the realism of friendship, but also still kind of force humor in there. And I just want to kind of throw in another comic to get people, give people an idea. When you're just going to be 5 to 90 minutes late, and it's just like beautiful, that is a moment all of us have either been part of or have been that main character. So please go ahead.
I guess I wanted to start with like the friendship as the first chapter because I mean, for one thing, it's like one of the longest ones, I think. And this is like a subject that I visit often in my work. Just like I think my friendships with other women have been very important to me throughout my life, especially in my adult life. But I mean, in my childhood too. So that's just a theme that I like to visit a lot.
And are like these comics specifically based on like real friendships and like real moments?
I mean, they're not like literal like situation. They're not like literal things that have happened. They're just kind of like, fictionalized versions of like experiences.
It's interesting that you say that because they feel so real, but you're saying like they're not literal moments, but it's almost like you've captured like a feeling. It's quite like hard to describe how often I like found myself or friends in this book. So in terms of like if you have kind of captured moments from like real events, have your friends ever like kind of recognized a moment or like a conversation and like it's kind of found its way to your work?
I don't know, I guess we could consult the chat because I see a couple of my friends in here. No, I mean, I don't know. I not that I know of. I try to, I try not to be like specific, I just like to capture like, I think a lot of people are familiar with, the feeling of going out with your friend to a bar and just, having a good time. So I think that that's like, kind of a relatable experience that people have. So
I kind of wondering based off of that, I'm going to go a little like off script here, but like, have you ever found yourself drawing someone accidentally, like that looks like your friend or looks like someone and you had to kind of change it or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that. I think I'm like, because I don't want to do that, like especially if I'm not like making a comic about a thing that I don't want to do a depiction of anyone in particular. So yeah, I mean, I try to like, avoid that, I guess.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I've had a couple moments where I've like accidentally drawn someone and it was like I didn't realize how much of I really liked someone's outfit one day and it somehow like made its way to like a design.
Yeah. I definitely have done that and not been happy about it.
So let's kind of move on to then the sexual relationships. If you're saying that the friendship parts aren't like literally taken from your real life, I assume that's kind of the same for the sexual like kind of comics in here.
Yeah. I'll take a sip of my wine for this question.
I'll join you.
Cheers. Yeah, I mean, I think I have a very vivid imagination. So yeah, I would say that kind of goes for, all of the themes in the book, including the sex ones. So
can they like kind of pivot from there for a moment. So I read this book obviously multiple times to prepare for this, and one of the times was in a coffee shop, and I felt like I had to keep looking over my shoulder to be like, I'm like reading erotica here. Like it's like there's so much like there's so much like nudity in the book, and I was kind of wondering from that if you've ever been drawing in like public spaces, or if you've ever felt kind of awkward about like the doing that kind of artwork if you're not alone in your office, because it is such an intimate thing.
Yeah, I have drawn some of the the body ones, or the sexual ones in coffee shops, and I think like there have been moments when I get self-conscious, but I feel like sometimes when I'm just like so in it, it's like I'm not really paying attention to like who's looking, or like I don't know. But I have had those moments where I'm like, oh, I wonder what people think of me. But
I didn't even realize, because I like your Instagram has always been so impressive to me, and I didn't realize what a different experience it would be reading it with all the themes kind of brought together, like in the format that sexual, like the sex chapter would be on its own. It's really fascinating how differently it does read from the Instagram. But the other and last relationship that's in there is a relationship with the self. Every character has a relationship with themselves that is expressed both through a caption and also through their expressions. And I was wondering if it isn't always a moment literally mined from friendship or mined from sexual encounters, I'm guessing this is the one that is probably most mined from your own life, is relationships with yourself. So I was wondering if you could talk more about that theme from the book.
Trying to think of like specific.
There's this one I love when it just says, when you're not here to impress anyone. And it's just this beautiful image of just like that expression is just perfect, and says so much about, again, this character's relationship with themselves.
Thank you. I think, I think that's a good one, actually. I mean, I think when I do ones like that, I feel like, I think everyone has those days where they're just like, they don't want to be looked at or perceived, or, and, but we have to do all these things all day. Like we have to perform at our jobs, and, we have to pretend like we're happy when we're not. And like, there's just, we have to perform like so much of the time, and it can be really exhausting. And so, I mean, I felt like that was kind of a relatable feeling when you just like you don't have it in you to perform or impress anyone. So.
Oh, that's like, it's kind of interesting, because that like kind of brings me to my next question about like there's so much humor in your work. Almost everything is, if not haha funny, it's just like a a moment you kind of recognize and is super relatable. But in those moments, like you kind of said, how the realism of like how everyone doesn't always want to be seen, those kind of off days. Does it ever feel like the jokes suffer in order to capture realism? Or does it ever feel like you're trapped in trying to make something funny because, hey, it is a series of kind of funny comics? like how is your relationship with jokes and realism and this kind of format and presenting your art this way?
I think that like I think humor is like kind of how I've been dealing with like every experience in my life since I was like a kid. Like that's I think sometimes like those, even like the funny ones often come from like a place of like sadness or like pain. And I think that, yeah, humor is just kind of how I approach things in life in general. And I think sometimes that can be inappropriate, you know, in some situations, if it's like the situation doesn't call for a joke, it needs to be like a serious discussion, and I put a joke in there that shouldn't be there. So yeah, I think that there are times like when I want to, you know, I want to write something like serious or thoughtful, and then I'm like, and then I go to like the funny place. But what if it was like, you know, like what if I made it funny though? I don't know. I just have a tendency to lean into like making a joke out of things. And
I agree with that take. I think the most human thing we do is make light of dark situations. I mean, kind of like I feel like I'm the person who makes a joke at a funeral because that is how I process
yeah,
sad moments. And I agree with kind of like this idea that there's funny baked into sad, and if anything, gives it this even more realistic tone, but also presents like a really interesting view or point of view from each of your characters because uh, you know, I turn the page and it feels like each character has such a specific point of view on life, which I don't know if I'm just projecting onto just how different each character looks and how different they seem in this world. But how, like, I love how they all kind of feel so realistic and feel like someone I know, but I can never quite put my finger on it. There's just something really lovely baked into with the humor and the darkness. And I did want to also add that, like, there's this really interesting, just not interesting. There's this really lovely, like a body inclusivity you have throughout, like your work, where you turn to every different page and there's just people of like completely different shapes and sizes, and you're really great at uh, just bringing in like very realistic body shapes, which I think is the other reason it felt when I was reading it in a coffee shop that I was doing something almost like I shouldn't be doing because it felt so realistic. I don't know how else to explain it, but like I remember I once saw like you know, those like I think it was like Dove or something had like real women on their like billboards for a while, and I remember the first time I saw one of those, I was like, "Huh, those ladies are naked," and I had never thought about that when it was super skinny models because I had just completely like,
yeah,
you know, I had gotten so used to that, I had gotten so accustomed to it, and so I felt it a lot more when I have something like your book and the bodies are beautiful, like the way the shapes you kind of craft out of like these just beautiful curvy bodies is just something I adore. And I'm kind of wondering, have you always drawn that way? Is that something you came to? It's a very specific style to you.
yeah, I think when I first started drawing the body specific cartoons, it was not only a way to just like study anatomy, but also or you know, interpret anatomy in my own like visual language, but just also to like have more acceptance of myself, because I did use, you know, I would like observe my own body as reference for a lot of these, and like and I've struggled with body image issues my whole life, as many people have, and so I think like you know, drawing them the way I saw them, and not in a not paint them in like a negative way, was like really important, and just like, you know, being, you know, like, oh yeah, this is what that looks like. This is what that part of my body looks like. And actually, it actually is really great and beautiful. And like, why don't we like show that more? Or, you know, like, why isn't that, you know, why don't these parts of the body get drawn more? Or, you know, I guess that was like the continual question, is like, you know, why don't, like, I never see this in a drawing. Like, why isn't anyone doing that? So I guess it was like a bit of frustration too, that I wasn't seeing that. So I wanted to call attention to it, I guess.
I love it. I in your work, I feel so like I feel so seen. It's like a little bit scary, because it's like I know those like shapes. I've seen those shapes on myself, and you draw them so with so much care, that they just seem delicious on the page, and it kind of, I feel like, even as a reader, makes you fall in love with your own curvy body. So I really appreciate how you draw bodies. And in talking about how you draw, I kind of wanted to move over to process, because one of the, you know, flagstone processes that you have is that you work on Post-it notes. And you do not shy away from showing that you work on Post-it notes, because the entire book is these high-res scans, not hiding that. So how did you kind of come to this format, and like, why Post-it notes?
Yeah, so like somebody, I did a talk in New York a couple years back with Pictoplasma, and one of the organizers had actually brought this up to me, and I hadn't thought about it before, but he was like, you know, it seems like your process was like kind of came out of, or your materials that you use specifically came out of this, your environment. And meaning that, like, you know, I work in an animation studio for 40 hours a week, and, you know, I'm in an office with like these office supplies, and like they're just there, they're readily available, and like it's like such a small surface area to cover that you can do something like really quickly, you know. You can just do like a nice little drawing, and like I'm not the first person to like draw on Post-its. A lot of animation people draw on Post-its, but yeah, I wasn't really like being intentional about that as my material. It was just something that just, it was there. It was like, you know, accessible. And so, and also like, I didn't have to pay for it either. You know, it was ready for you. So
the real answer.
Yeah. So, I mean, art materials are expensive. So, yeah, that was like, it wasn't intentional at first, but then I was intentional about it, because I was like, oh, I actually like working on this surface. And I also like working on, you know, you're not working with a white background, which is interesting too, because that changes the colors. And, you know, working on this like muted yellow surface, I just thought it was interesting. And I like the way the markers take to the surface. It's and also it just feels like I get like anxiety working in like, if I buy like a pad of paper that's like really expensive and, you know, made for like a beautiful finished piece, I'm always gonna screw it up. You know, like I just feel like I'm always gonna mess it up. So I think like working on the Post-its and having it like not be this, it makes me take it less seriously, but not in terms of like the content, just, you know, it gives me less anxiety when I work that way.
I agree with you that a lot of people in animation work on Post-it notes. Again, kind of for the same reason, there's like a lot less pressure with this kind of, you know, cheap material. But there's such a choice in that you have, most people in animation, I would say, kind of rough stuff out, but very few people make that their final look. And you've so intentionally chosen to make that Post-it format your kind of signature. And I noticed that especially in when you correct your own Post-it notes by layering on even more Post-it notes. And I just find it really fascinating because it's this, you know, like you kind of said, this cheap kind of way of making art, but it is also so valuable that you have chosen to correct your own artwork rather than like start again or start fresh. So I'm kind of wondering, you know, how do you first of all work in correcting your own, like how does it work? Like what do you find that needs to be corrected? Why do you ever actually change anything? What do you find yourself mostly changing? But also how, you know, how did you come to that choice that the finished piece is gonna have layered Post-it notes rather than restarting the Post-it note with the corrections?
Yeah. So that process of like layering, you know, like little torn pieces on top, that wasn't intentional either. That was just like, because I don't know, I guess I never really had intended for these to be like beautifully thought out, planned ahead pieces. Like they, I think like there's when you just like go straight ahead, and I would not pencil these first either. I would just go straight to ink. Some of them I would sketch, like if there was a part that I felt like I was going to screw up that I didn't want to, then I would pencil it in. But for the most part, I would just ink it, because I don't. There's like something that gets lost in the process of like sketching and planning, and then going over it again with ink. There's like this kind of, there's like a truth to the sketch that is not there when you plan, and I like that. There's just, I don't know, it has like this improvisational feel to it, and I just really like that. And I've never been able to achieve that by sketching first and then inking it by, you know, using a light table or something like that, you know?
So was it again that you're trying to speak to the truth of the sketch, that you would, if you had to correct one, that you wouldn't trace, I guess, or restart? Like if there was a mistake, it's kind of worth going and correcting?
Yeah, because there might be a part of the drawing that I really like that I don't want to lose, and that would get lost if I started over. So I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to. There were a few that I have like multiple drawings of, where I'm like, oh, that, like I did the full thing, and then I was like, well, maybe I could do it better, and so I would draw the whole thing over again. But like most of the time I did that, I would almost always end up going with the first one that I drew. And I would like, sometimes I would like put it away for several days or like even weeks or months. And then I would come back to it and think, oh yeah, like the first one was definitely the superior drawing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I like think you are so good at capturing, you know, expressions, and certainly like there's such a truth to your drawing style and how I truly would have had no idea that these are first time drawings. I thought that they were penciled or that you were doing them multiple times to really capture these expressions so perfectly. So it's really surprising to me to learn that some of these are like first times. It's quite infuriating to know that you are that talented. But the other part of your work, the other component of your style is the perfect captions to these drawings. And so I'm kind of wondering, like what's the process? Does the caption come first? Is it like you get a really great expression and you get to like think of a caption that really suits it? Like, how much does it get edited? Just kind of walk me through the captions.
So for me, I almost never, with the exception of like a few times, I almost never write a caption first. It always comes during, like, as I'm drawing. Because for me, like I don't really think with words. Like, that's not something that my brain doesn't work like that. Like, visuals just make more sense to me. And to me, it feels like my drawing is the writing. And those two things are like so intertwined with each other that I can't do one without the other. So I feel like the writing, the words come with the drawing as I do it. And I almost always have to start drawing in order to get there. Like, I can't, it's really hard for me to do it the other way around. Although I have done it on occasion where I write a caption first. And then with like the captions themselves, like I try, as a rule, I try to use words as sparingly as possible. So like, and I feel like that kind of reflects how I approach like my line work too. You know, I try to be very simple with it. And the goal is to always like show as little visual information as possible and still get the feeling or the point across. So, and that's kind of how I approach it with words too. Like I want it to be, sometimes I feel like they get too wordy. I try to like take out as many words as possible until I just get it to the like the essence of what I'm trying to say. So yeah,
I love the specificity. I truly like, I adore it. There are times where like some of them are really sparing in the caption, and then sometimes I feel like you go the complete opposite, and it's like really nicely wordy in that it makes it even more specific. And I like really like the choices you make. So I'm kind of wondering, in that process that like the captions appear as you're drawing, for the average comic, are there like, is there just one version of the caption, or by the end of the night do you have like 10 versions of that caption? Kind of, please tell me that you don't get it right on the first time with the caption, just like the drawing, because I can't take that.
Man, I think like I don't man. I don't know, like I'm not like writing down the caption. I'm not like physically writing them down. Sometimes I do that though. Sometimes I will, just so I can, and then like I have to look at it first to see like, okay, is that like too many? Does this visually look like too many words to me? Like sometimes I'll do it that way. But I don't know. Like the caption process is like there's a lot of refining that happens, and it'll take me like hour. Like it takes me longer to write the captions than it does to do the drawings a lot. Not always, but Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of know like what. Well, I don't know. I don't want to. It's not because it's not always the same for everyone. Like, so, there are some times when I really struggle with the caption and then like and the wording, and I don't know. It depends.
I kind of like what you said there, though, about like the difference in timing with like that you can sometimes get the image out faster than you can the caption, because that speaks so truly to that a picture is worth 1,000 words, like that you can capture something so much faster in a look and an expression, and then finding the right words to have to like set it in stone for what it really means is so meticulous that it makes sense to me what you're saying, that it can just take longer. And on that, I'm kind of wondering, in having to take this Instagram series and collect it all together, were there any captions that like changed from their Instagram versions to the final book versions?
Yes.
Really? Would you
Yes.
know like how many, or?
Not a lot. I tried to do that as little as possible, but I did feel like there were some where the wording could have been like tightened up a little bit, or also like some of them I did edit like and gave a different narrative, which I wasn't planning to do, but I did do that with a couple of them because I thought like, and I wanted to like try to remain as true as I could to like, some of these were like written 5 years ago, and I feel like, that's not how I think now, or I could have written something different. And so there were like a small handful that I did do that with, but I tried not to do it too much because I did want to like have it be, kind of like this, even if it's not necessarily reflective of what I would write now, like, I still wanted it to, I don't know, it's like a timestamp, like a time capsule of, like my older self.
I mean, your Instagram version is, a proof of concept. Like, everyone loved that caption, so it's also like, hey, it worked. Kind of why change it now? Obviously, so many people did relate to it.
I mean, yeah, there were some that I thought were good that I didn't want to mess with, but just thought that the wording could be tightened up a little bit, just consolidated just a little bit. And also I learned after looking through them that, there's like sometimes I felt like some of them were even unnecessary, like, like, or they kind of like the words sometimes took away from like what the image is saying by itself already. So, yeah, I mean, I did edit a little bit, but I tried not to do it too much.
I think that's noble. I also think it like makes me want to like go back and like fact check each one, so so I can see what like a different version would have said. There's also kind of like this I don't know, New Yorker cartoon kind of version where I want to cover the captions and kind of like answer what could the caption be from my own experience. So I kind of like that you changed it with depending on past you versus present you. But I do want to talk more about Instagram, because you had to collect all these and make this book. But let's kind of rewind and go back to the beginning. Like, how did you even kind of start making this series? And the series specifically that I mean is Post-it notes, is the just most on point expressions I've like ever seen, and then has a really funny caption to kind of cherry on top, just like finish it off. How did you start that?
I think right. I think I just wanted to do something like consistently, like I just wanted to make work and be consistent about it. And so I think that part of it was just me saying like, okay, I'm going to sit down and like, I'm going to spend a minimum of like an hour at my desk and just draw and see what I can come up with. And then, you know, maybe it won't be perfect, or, you know, it won't be finished or perfect, but I'll have something. And also it was just a way to like kind of process my experiences and just like, I don't know, like journaling in a way, if you want to call it that. But I don't really do that because I'm not the kind of person who can just sit down and write words like endlessly. That feels unnatural to me. So I think like drawing and just making pictures is kind of how I process things. So
you definitely capture tone and feeling like really well in your work. But and then having started the series all based in like, you want to start kind of having something consistently, was there a point at which you knew, like you're on Instagram and you're putting all of these up quite regularly, is there a point at which you knew that you would want to make a book or that you could make a book?
Yeah, I think I guess some people were telling me that I should make a book out of it, and I was like, whatever. It's, you know, I didn't really like think about it that much. And then I guess I don't know, I guess I kind of did start thinking about that. And then I don't know. I guess I thought, oh, well, like at some point I was just like, yeah, maybe I could do that actually. That might, maybe that would work.
I know. I was one of those like people telling you to make a book, and it was very selfish on my part where I spend too much time on my phone already, and I would love like a collection ready to go that I can just pick up at any point. So thank you.
Well, we have some audience questions that have been piling up in here, if y'all are ready for that. First, our first question is, do you consider yourself introverted? And if yes, is cartooning and drawing a way to express yourself in a more comfortable way?
Yes. Yes. The short answer is yes. I do consider myself very introverted. And yes, drawing is an easy way to express myself. I feel like the answer is already in that question.
Yeah.
I would say that's pretty like spot on. Yeah. I've never really been like super comfortable with speaking, and yeah. Yeah.
And next, do you have the desire to turn any of your drawings or your characters into toys?
I don't know, because it depends on I don't know. I hadn't really like given any thought to that, but you know, maybe.
I can kind of imagine like some erotic sculptures, if I'm honest. Like I can like there's so many, like you said earlier, like the whole, you know, the body aspect of it. There's some really like beautiful curves that I think would lend themselves to like 3D versions, and I can just imagine you making like an erotic series. So do that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think they would look cool as 3D objects. I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, and Aminder kind of led us into our next question, which is Annabelle asked or said that she'd love to know more about how you developed your unique graphic style and how you came up with the idea for, or how you come up with an idea for a comic. And the second half of her question is, are you up for collaborations with sex positive concept stores? Wink, wink. Sending love from Mexico City.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of the first part of the question was about developing my style.
Your graphic style, and then how you come up with ideas for comics, or I guess maybe when that idea springs up, what do you do with it?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can say about like my style is that it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't just something that I woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm gonna draw like this now or something. It just kind of happened through like doing, like repeating, doing, you know, drawing repetitively, and you know, yeah, being like just observing and yeah, I think I was like avoiding looking at other artists for influence. Like that was like something I wanted to avoid. I wanted to be like as authentic to myself as I could possibly be.
Can I ask a question based off of your style, and just in between there, I'll get a question in. You kind of have this intentional choice of not really using skin tones either in your color choices. Is that just something that's kind of always been your style, or is that something specific to this series?
Yeah, I think I just
Kitty.
Yeah, I just really wanted to play around with like really like saturated like really saturated colors, and just like see like what I could do with that. Like I don't know that it was like intentional to not use skin tones. It was just like I just wanted to use like other, like, you know, reds and yellows, and I just feel drawn to those colors.
I definitely think like there's some where you've used like reds or purples, and it's like something very sexual, and it feels like you've captured the passion on like this whole other level, which average skin tones probably just can't do, where like a magenta really hits the spot.
Yeah, it's interesting that you picked up on that, because I actually did use red a lot, not only because I like red, but just because there were ones where I wanted to depict like anger or like a very strong emotion or like passion, like you said. And I felt like red was like the color, you know, that to get that point across. So yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that.
This is my thesis.
No, there's another.
I kind of like inceptioned the question, and I've forgotten what the second part was.
Yeah, I don't know. Did I miss anything? I don't know.
They can be angry at me.
No. And we still have some more. So the next one is, do you consume a lot of comics as references for your work? If so, could you name some great references or inspirations?
The short answer would be no, I don't actually consume. I do read comics. As a source of inspiration, I feel like that's not really my go-to. I feel like I pull inspiration more from like kind of just real life observation and like I also take a lot from like actors who do like really physical comedy and who do a lot of things with their faces, and like Kristen Wiig, for example. You know, like she's a good one. Like I'd say she's been a great influence on my work, just in the way that she uses her face. I just think she's hysterical. And yeah, I would say that I pull a lot of inspiration from that type of thing.
Do you like avoid reading comics at all so that they don't influence your work, or does that not really happen?
I mean, I don't want to say like I avoid it, but I would just say that I pull more inspiration from other forms of art as opposed to like comics, which sounds strange, but yeah, I'd say that's kind of how where oh my god. Yeah.
That's a great period to that answer.
Yes. And then we have a nice one to end on here. Do you have any advice for artists who are seeking to get their projects published? And is there anything you wish you knew before you pitched your books?
Wow. How do I answer this? Because I publishing a book was like not something I ever thought I would do. Like it was like never a goal of mine that I set out to do. And also like I just never thought of myself doing anything like this. And I'm still in a little bit of disbelief that I like can't really process it that like I made a book, because I just never envisioned myself like doing that. So do I have any advice? Just like, I guess it's kind of a general piece of advice. Just keep making your work, you know, and just keep doing it no matter what anyone says. Like, you know, if you get some rejections, like that doesn't matter. Just keep making it. If it's important to you and you want to do it, just keep doing it. It's not, you know, being published or not published is not a measure of your success or your worth. If you want to do it, just keep doing it. That's the advice that I would give to anyone, you know, who's an artist, or, you know. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I kind of want to ask on top of that then, you said keep doing it. Are you going to keep doing the series on Instagram, or are you kind of pivoting into something else? Is this the end of an era?
It might be the end of an era. I don't know. I would say that like doing this particular format of the Post-its with the captions is not really a format that I feel compelled to do right now. I would like to explore other ways to tell a story. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on now. And it's also really important to me to make work that feels like just like I'm being the most authentic I can possibly be. And so I'm like still making work right now, but I'm sharing it a lot less. And that's not going to be forever, but it is kind of where I'm at currently. So yeah, I mean, I'm not always going to be like, I'm feeling like very private and protective of my work and my process right now. But I don't think that's like permanent. I think it's just kind of where I'm at right now. And I think that like, you know, however it like manifests itself and, you know, like what I do next is going to be like, it'll happen when the time is right. So no, I'm not doing the Post-its right now. But I may do something like even better and like more surprising than the Post-its. So yeah, I think yeah, so I'm not doing the Post-its now, but I am still making work. So yeah.
I'm excited for anything that you do, and I hope everyone who's here has ordered Impressed from that button down below and has gotten another copy for their friends and a third copy for just, you know, leave about.
Everybody. Leave them around for people to pick up. And on that note as well, for any and everyone that you want to share this event with, for anyone who couldn't make it or anyone that you know will love it, once we end the broadcast, the recording will be available for you to send and share and rewatch at the same link. And as Aminder said, for anyone who doesn't have their copy of the book yet, you can press the shiny green button at the bottom of your screen to order your copy from Skylight Books. And thank you again so much to Miranda, Tacchia and Aminder Dhaliwal for joining us this evening, and for all of our guests who showed up from all over the place, and our very active chat, which just always makes things so much more fun. Thank you everyone for joining us. And if you're in LA, we hope to see you soon. And if not, we'll see you back again in the virtual plane very soon as well, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.